American author Robin Sloan once said, and I quote, "When you read a book, the story definitely happens inside your head. When you listen, it seems to happen in a little cloud all around it, like a fuzzy knit cap pulled down over your eyes." Hi everyone, I'm Benaifer Mirza, a lifestyle writer and voice artist, and I would like to welcome you all to this very, very special session called The Rise and Rise of Audiobooks. I would like to begin by thanking Team India Voice Fest and Sugar Medias for giving me this amazing opportunity on such a big platform. So, when Darpan asked me to moderate this session, I was truly humbled and excited. Sorry, humbled because I was going to be in conversation with such an esteemed panel. Here are artists and creative minds who I truly admire and look up to. And excited because from all the voiceover and voice acting work that I do, I'd say audiobooks is something that I truly enjoy and love the most. I always say that it's like getting paid to read, literally a dream come true for an artist like me. And for a fact, audiobooks is an area of voicing that deserves its own space and recognition. So, a big, big, big thank you to Team India Voice Fest and Sugar Medias for doing an exclusive session on audiobooks, which, as I said, aptly titled, is The Rise and Rise of Audiobooks. So now, our amazing panelists. I mean, so amazing. What an honor to be here with all of you. So, let's begin with Arcopol Chaudhary. An avid reader, audiobook binge listener, and publishing professional, Arcopol is all this and more. He plays the very prestigious role of senior editor, new media at HarperCollins Publishers India, where he steers audiobook publishing, the licensing and sale of audiovisual rights for the publication house's books, and drives the company's foray into other new media. Having been around in the industry for about a decade, Arcopol has commissioned books, edited them, worked closely with publicity teams on marketing campaigns, created newsletters, sold rights across territories and formats. Whew. So, in a nutshell, Arcopol is the man with whom we artists get our money from. So, we need to really, really impress him. Now, speaking of impressing, who bigger and better than the very, very lovely Jasleen Bhalla? She's a singer, songwriter, poetess, and hold your breath, ladies and gentlemen, the voice of the pandemic. Yes, it sounds very grave. Yes, she is the Hindi voice on the caller tune spreading awareness about the COVID-19 virus or coronavirus. Well, just lead on a side note. Thank you so much for making this notorious virus seem less evil with your beautiful, beautiful voice. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just Jasleen has also narrated a number of books, including It's All in the Planets, written by Preeti Shenoy, Farah Bashir's Rumors of Spring, the Hindi edition of Japani Sarai, written by Anukriti Upadhyay, Nikita Singh's Your Love Guru, and What You See When You Look in the Mirror, to name a few. So, welcome, Jasleen. Welcome, Arcopol. And
Thank you.
now, coming to our next panelist, Siddhanta Pinto, founder, CEO of Offspin Media Friends. And that's not it. Siddhant himself is an extremely accomplished voice artist and has narrated some of the most popular audiobooks, including Chetan Bhagat's Two States and The Girl in Room 105, Anand Neelkanthan's Rise of Kali and Roll of the Dice, The Vault of Vishnu, written by Ashwin Sanghi, You Can Win and Freedom is Not Free by Shiv Khera, and I could go on and on and on. And you know what, Siddhant? There's so many books in this list that I would not read, but I would listen to, thanks to the beautiful rendition that you've given to all of them. And finally, last but not the least, the stunning Nimisha Sirohi, who has been voicing for more than 10 years and has lent her voice to a number of television commercials, promos, corporate films, audiobooks, IVRs, and many, many more projects. Her deep, stylish, and sophisticated voice has brought life to a number of ads and brands, including Johnson's, Nexa, Nivea, L'Oreal, Airtel, Ariel, Yes Bank, Axis Bank, Viacom 18, Reliance Broadcast, and please give me some more breath because I'm running out of it. Nimisha was also the winner of the Best Corporate Film Female Hindi Award at India Voice Fest 2020. And she has voiced some beautiful titles, including Preeti Shenoy's When Love Came Calling and The Rule Breakers, Girl in White Cotton, written by Avni Doshi, and Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni's The Last Queen. So it's so amazing to have such esteemed people from different areas of the audiobook industry with us today. So a big round of applause for all of you. So let's begin. I think we've lost Jasleen. Oh, Jasleen, you're back. Thank you. So my first question is going to be to you, Arcopol. Can you tell us the process of voice acting when it comes to audiobooks? Like let's start from the beginning, the entire process.
I think it's a process which is fairly simple. We identify a book that we would want in an audiobook format, and not every book works in an audiobook format. So that's one thing I must say. Um, so the choice of, or the decision of selecting which books work well in audio, that's something that we take internally, and then we go about finding the right voice for it. The right voice can be decided by the credentials of the voice artist, the requirements of the book itself, the kind of narration it needs, the genre. I mean, is the author a male author or a female author? Some Generally we tend to match a male author with a male voice, but I'm glad we're sort of coming out of that mindset that a male author's book should be voiced only by a male author. We've sort of switched that around multiple times. In fact, I think largely we've looked at performance, and I think that really is the best benchmark of casting someone. In my short experience, in the audiobook space, and the most important thing, at least for me, is that the artist should be narrating it, should not be reading it. And there's a slight difference between narration and reading, and we also try and take the artist out of their comfort zone. Often we've seen that if the artist has done a certain kind of work, which could be voiceovers, radio, ads, uh, there's a certain way of delivering the lines that sort of tends to creep in into the narrative process. And I love challenging them to say, just let's get out of that and read this in a way which makes it an amazing listening experience for the listener. So that largely is the process. It's a team effort, because the artist, the producer, the engineer, and of course the author's words, which sort of really is the start of the process. All of it sort of comes together, and eventually it really plays out, as it was said in the introduction. It's the theater of the mind. You are free to imagine a scene or a description in the way you'd like it to be. It's a performance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well said. So, Nimisha and Jasleen, both of you are commercial voice artists. You've graced so many brands. And compared to a 30-second ad, like I always say, sometimes it's easier to crack an ad versus an audiobook, which is so many hours of recording and this much money. So, would you like to elaborate a little bit on that? Jasleen, if you could go first.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, when we talk about a commercial, that's like pretty tiny in terms of the amount of time it requires or the commitment it requires. But at the end of the day, every piece of work that you voice has such a different dimension to it. And especially if you enjoy reading books, I mean, for me, at times I'm just excited to get like a certain book. I mean, for instance, as you mentioned, when I recorded Farah Bashir's, Rumors of Spring, the kind of insight the book offers you, of the things that happen in Kashmir. I mean, at times that experience is mind blowing, because I love reading books. I often take it as, and it's a wonderful practice as an artist to even explore your own depth. It's easy to sort of play a character, and but over here you've got to sustain it, be detached, all of that, and then bring those words to life. The experience in itself is amazing. So, and I believe that this industry is expanding so rapidly that I hope that the money also improves over here.
Yes, yes. Nimisha, how do you
Um,
deal with this?
Adding to what Jasleen just said, there's a big difference between voicing for a 30-second TVC and voicing for an audiobook. For me personally, I feel that I think of it as going into a storytelling mindset. I have to think of the pace and the tone of the way in which I'm going to narrate this piece of work. And it's a fairly conscious adaptation to the final product or the output in the form of an audiobook. Because you have to understand that you're in it for a long haul. It's it You have to create that character, and that character has to sustain over a span of 5 hours or 6 hours, when a person is listening to the audiobook. So it requires a certain different mindset is what I definitely feel. 30-second, 60-second TVC happens really fast and it's over and done with. But when you create a character in an audiobook, it requires uh, more conscious effort from your end, I feel. Yes, reading, enjoying reading, that's a part of it. But as a voice artist, I think also need to, we also, I'm sure Justine as well, consciously get into the storyline of which the one which we're narrating. Yeah.
Absolutely, Nimisha. And that's what I say कि जो energy के साथ आप वो पहली page read कर रहे हो वही energy 300th page तक you have to maintain, because your listeners are going to know that, oh, this is the fourth hour of recording and she's all down and out and she's really exhausted. So, Siddhant,
Absolutely.
coming to you, you manage both the ends. So you're an artist yourself, and you also have to scout for good talent. So how easy
Such
is
as
it?
yourselves.
Thank you. So how easy is it to find good talent, or probably I would say more than a good talent, a voice that is perfect for a particular book? And sometimes do you feel like, damn, ये तो female author की जरूरत है, लेकिन मैं ऐसे करता, तो what is the entire process, playing both ends?
Thank you for having me. And before I answer my question, I'd just like to let all the voice artists in India who are listening think of this fact, right? Coming to Jasleen and Nimisha's question about money. Yes, you spend maybe 1 hour in a studio doing a 30-second ad and you get paid much more. But that campaign is over in 10 days. And imagine doing a good book which your children and your children's children will listen to, and they listen to your voice. And there's a legacy behind that. That's something to consider as well, especially if it's a meaningful book, especially if it's a book that can change lives. This is something that
Absolutely.
is incredibly important and rewarding, and something that all voice actors should consider. Forget the money. I know it's a very tough thing I'm asking for. The money will only improve, right? Arco can come in on this as well on that point because apparently it's 4.8 billion US dollars the income from audiobooks around the world, and it's supposed to go to 9.6 in 2026. But coming to my question, it is tough. It's down to this, right? Our data bank of voices right now at Offspin is around 50 quality people we can go to, and we need to make that 500. We need to make that 1,000 voice actors that we can go to. It's just down to that's the opportunity lying in front of you, everyone who's listening. Um, when we get a book to do, I just asked here just before this show about what goes through her mind when she's casting, and you said, for me, I try and imagine that person saying these few words part of this book. There's a lot of cultural context as well. For example, we just got a book a few days ago, which was Choker Bali, and we said, hey, what if a Bengali voice actor does that, right? So that's very important. India is a voice with, I've lost count how many languages. And imagine if there's a famous book that needs to be localized in all these languages. Look at the opportunity. Look at the suitability for you, right? This is not an industry like that you have to struggle with, like you did 10 years ago to break into the ad industry. That was controlled by say 5 male voices, right? I struggled a lot in my early years. Then came along audiobooks, and that's when I had opportunity. So there's plenty of opportunity. What else do we consider while casting a person? And this is something, I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's also a business at the end of the day. So we look for voice actors that make our lives the easiest. and take the least amount of time for my engineers. It's down to that, right? The easier you are to work with as a person and as a voice actor, and you have to learn the technique, right? Gone are those days where you come to a studio, unfortunately, thanks to the pandemic, where our engineer would spend, say if it's a 10-hour book, our engineer will spend 20 hours with you if you're a good voice actor, just recording it. Then the post-production starts. Now, if you can get the tech set up at home, you save us those 20 hours, right? And then the easier it is to post-produce a book, uh, the more books you'll get. It's as simple as that. Uh, and it's fluency. Benaifer, at the end of the day, we need a voice actor who knows their subject matter and their language very well. A good voice actor, and if you're looking for stats, if it's a 1 hour of finished content, a good voice actor will take 1.5 hours to do. A bad, not so fluent actor will take 3 hours to do, and then you can imagine the commercials behind that, right? So it's try and get yourself into that 1.5 times of finished content to become a voice actor who will get lots of work. I hope I've answered part of your question.
Bilkul. It's so true, but I can tell you from my experience, Siddhant, that sometimes you really get stuck with a book. I wouldn't say stuck, but you get a book that has so many difficult, like I remember doing this book which had so many Chinese states and names that I was constantly like kind of Googling, so that is when but definitely I think it needs to be a lucrative proposition for the studio and for everyone.
Absolutely.
लेकिन सिद्धांत आपने बहुत ही रेलेवेंट टॉपिक निकाली कि पैंडेमिक ने पूरी इंडस्ट्री को रीडिफाइन कर दिया है और हम में से बहुत सारों के पास अब होम स्टूडियो है. So, Jasleen, Nimisha, you can go first. How easy or difficult is it to do a long format audiobook घर से?
First of all, I mean, all of us who have, managed to set up equipments at home, I'm sure all of us have gone through our own, tech-related challenges, because there are many tech-related challenges. We were not mentally prepared to be doubling up as engineers, okay? So initially, I think, of course, we've all become far more savvy over the last 1 year, but initially there have been, data losses, like a 1.5 to 2 hour session. A lot of times there has been data loss where I've lost half an hour of, recorded work because of pressing some wrong button, or just my computer acted up, or all kinds of things. But I also feel there has been, a new means of communication which we've all developed between the engineers and us. So when you're doing an audiobook, you make a mistake. Earlier, you would be in the studio and your engineer would instantly, backtrack and you'd re-record the line. And now when you make the mistake, you're just like clapping to, indicate to the engineer at the other end that, boss, this is where I made the mistake. Go figure it out. So, it has its challenges, but it's also had, it's been an adventure, I would say. I've quite enjoyed working from home. It's exhausting. 2 hours of continuous speaking is exhausting for the best of artists. So I think all of us take sufficient breaks in the middle and, go for it, come back to it and all of that. But yes, it has been challenging. Jasleen.
Absolutely. Jasleen, and I would want you to also speak a little on the, because long format work, it's like basically, you need to really keep in mind that, you need to maintain the same amount of distance from the mic and things like that. So वो सारी चीजों पे अगर आप please थोड़ा highlight करोगे.
Yeah. So for me, the experience of recording from home, I actually had a setup for a long time, because I happen to be one of those artists who wouldn't want to go to a studio for one line of correction. And and also because I ended up working on certain long formats for even people like out of town. I've had it for a few years now. So it really, really, like, I haven't stepped out to an external studio in nearly since the pandemic started. So everything has been from home for me. And I really feel like it's this magic space for me, because sitting in that little cave I'm connected to everybody that I work with, and my work is going out. In fact, it gave me the opportunity to work a lot on the long formats for that matter. Because for me, usually spending 3 to 4 hours in a studio might get very monotonous. So it gives you the freedom to take, these interim breaks when you feel tired, or just, take that pause, refresh yourself, do that. In fact, I tend to have a lot of fun while I record because I know who's going to edit it, and so what happens is that I keep putting in these voice notes, where I feel like I will not let the editor sleep either. So I record a bit, and then suddenly there's a line in between. I say, ki, अरे इसको ध्यान से करना इसका second take ले लेना. I'll just do all of that. It's almost like I'm recording, but I also communicate with the engineer, and I tell them they are voice notes, they are voice markers, you better listen to them. And yeah, so but yeah, at the end of the day, you do miss going to a studio and meeting your co-artists and the engineers and the producers. That entire feel of, like, communicating and laughing and working, I really miss that.
Absolutely. और जसलीन, मैंने आपकी हिंदी सुनी हुई है, so please, we would love to listen to you in Hindi also. And you know what, guys, just a little
Yeah, take
secret.
one for the team.
There are a lot of producers and publishers over here who publish content and produce content in Hindi and English. So थोड़ा सा उन लोग को भी impress कर लेते हैं, हिंदी में बात करते हैं. ठीक है? So Arcopol, my question to you is, tell us how much of our hard work as artists has resulted in the rise of audiobook consumption during the pandemic.
I think pandemic में सबसे बड़ी बात तो यार, I think see, there are these voices in your head. You are isolated. There were lockdowns. There's anxiety. I in hindsight मुझे लगता है कि it was inevitable कि audiobooks were meant to really take off in the pandemic, or just audio form of content, say podcasts, or audio plays, audio dramas, audio content in all forms. It sort of really went places. The other thing that happened was because bookshops were shut, you had no way of walking into a shop and buying your own book. You had dependent on, say, online retailers who were delivering only essential items. So what is the most seamless way of getting a book or a form of content directly with no intermediaries? Audiobook was one way of getting that sort of content. So I think that was one of the big reasons why I think audio sort of took off. Mind you, HarperCollins as a company, हमने पैंडेमिक के ठीक बीच में ऑडियो बुक्स का पूरा ये पब्लिशिंग प्रोग्राम लॉन्च करने का हमने प्लान किया. एंड if this was pre-pandemic, शायद मुझे बॉम्बे जाना पड़ता, बैंगलोर जाना पड़ता, स्टूडियोज से मैं आपसे मिल पाता. But I am actually realizing now, all of you worked in various capacities on some HarperCollins book or the other, but I have not even actually met you in person. But this is what the pandemic has enabled. It has brought pure logic and work back into focus. हमने travel निकाल दी, हमने small talk निकाल दी, हमने meals निकाल दी, but it's really back to sort of the basics, the work. It's that sort of really come out. And I think right now हमारा catalog शायद 70 to 80 titles है जो हमने एक साल में produce करी हैं, और all भी titles बन रही हैं, तैयार हो रही हैं. And all of it has happened fueled by the fact that there is data with us to indicate that audiobook consumption is growing. मैं आपको एक और एग्जांपल देता हूँ. यूएस और यूके में जहाँ हमारी HarperCollins की फ्लैगशिप मेन कंपनीज हैं, वहाँ पे because offline retail bookshops were shut, audio has made up for the revenue loss due to the non-availability of physical books. So if you weren't able to step out and get your groceries, or you found that difficult, audio has sort of made up for it. So a big reason for the success of, say, books like Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk, or Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, The Winning Attitude, all of these books were the kind of books people went to for comfort during the pandemic. It really helped. It helped you switch off from what is actually happening outside in the world, and just gave you some real time just with you, your earphones, and the book and the voice artist. That's it. And I think that was a big reason why I think audiobooks have the rise and rise is because of that.
Very true, very true. In fact, I think, like there was a point initially we were all thrilled. Oh, OTT platform, we binged watched it. And then we really reached a saturation point, and that is when a lot of people have also converted to audiobooks. Siddhant, my question to you is typically ad world में होता है favorites होते हैं. um does that happen with you as well कि ये तो मेरी like Jasleen is a safe artist, Nimisha is a safe artist, मैं उनको ही promote करूंगा. And there are aspiring artists, budding artists who want to kind of make it. So वो जद्दोजहद कैसे होती है और कैसे आप डील करते हो उसके साथ?
We fight with each other within Offspin to try a new voice, right?
Wow.
And when I say we fight, we're not fighting for an established voice versus the new voice. We fight for all the new voices. No, give this new voice a chance. Don't give that new voice a chance, right? Because the point is the audiobook industry is reaching that point where, some voices are overused. And there's so much scope for new voices. I mean, the scope for new voices in the audiobook industry is unlike any other scope we've seen in the audio industry. And I mean that and I truly mean that. And the reason I say that is because, all the best voices don't necessarily make the best audiobook narrators. And I keep telling this to all new talent and established talent as well. The listener should not notice your presence. However weird that statement sounds, right?
That's good advice.
The listener should not notice the presence of your voice. It's all about the content. It's all about the story. It's all about what's happening, etc., etc. And I find there's a trend to try and focus way too much on your voice, try and make it deeper and try and and that's exactly what Arco was saying. It sounds too read out. Take your voice out of it. Just focus on the content and tell a story like somebody's sitting right in front of you, and you'll do really, really well. So yes, new talent. If anyone's listening, and all thanks to Darpan, like a standing ovation for what he's done for new talent and this entire fest. Guys, look at audiobooks as a genuine way to start off your careers and a genuine way to support your careers. I cannot tell you how many people's bills the audiobook industry has paid during the pandemic, the 2 years of the pandemic, how many people it has afforded to stay within metros and not go back home. The number of actors from web series and film who now come to audiobooks because they just needed to pay bills and survive. And it has become possible because of audiobooks. And that will only, get better and better. The audiobook industry right now is still in the customer acquisition phase, where most audiobooks are free. But once they start paying, like they pay for Netflix and Prime, etc., can you imagine the scope? And so establish yourself now so that listeners, and once these platforms like Audible and Storytel, etc., see that people are listening to more of this narrator, imagine the equity you can command.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, like I feel an audiobook is the best of both worlds, wherein you need to play a fine balance between your narration and the over the topness of you can't be over the top like you would when you're dubbing any content. So Jasleen, अब आप हिंदी में बात करेंगे हमारे साथ. FYI.
Sorry.
So Jasleen, tell me one thing. Very often I get this question कि इतने सारे characters हैं book में, तो मैं इतनी आवाजें कैसे निकालूं? और plus narrator की आवाज, which is comparatively your natural voice most of the times. So इतनी सारी आवाजें कैसे निकालते हैं? What is your tip?
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि कई बार लोग, मतलब ये मेरा पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस है, जब आप ऑडियो बुक कर रहे हैं तो डेफिनेटली एक स्ट्रगल होगा कहीं पे माइंड में टू अनलर्न द कमर्शियल वे ऑफ वॉइसिंग थिंग्स, जहाँ पर आप एक एड में सास बहू बच्चा सब बनते हैं बट मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि एक ऑडियो, जब कोई अपने हेडफोन्स में आपका ऑडियो सुन रहा है, वो एक इंटीमेट रिलेशनशिप है, बिकॉज उसके साथ में 10 लोग बैठकर वो सीरीज नहीं देख रहे हैं, वो अपने अपने मी टाइम के अंदर 15 मिनट, 20 मिनट, 1 घंटा वो ऑडियो अपने कानों में हेडफोन्स पे सुन रहा है। एंड आपको उसमें और ये तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है आपको बहुत ज़्यादा ड्रामेटिक शायद होने की ज़रूरत भी ना हो। तो आपको एक वो कैरेक्टर, आपको टोन पकड़नी है, ना कि आपको 10 कैरेक्टर बनना है। Because there would be a difference between doing an audio series and an audio drama versus an audio
Yeah.
book. And it is so sensitive, like एक author ने एक किताब लिखी है, उसका एक इंटेंट है, वो एक तरह से चाहता है उसकी किताब को परसीव किया जाए। तो मैं तो सिर्फ एक मीडियम हूँ ना, आई कांट बिकम, मैं वो इतना ज्यादा कैरेक्टर क्यों बन जाऊं कि किसी के परसेप्शन को मैं एकदम पेंट कर दूं। तो मुझे लगता है आपको सिर्फ मूड को पकड़ने की जरूरत है। आपको दादी का, आप डायलॉग बोल रहे हैं बीच में, तो आपको दादी की आवाज निकालने की जरूरत नहीं है। यू जस्ट हैव टू गेट द टोन राइट, कि वो सीरियस है, वो क्या कहने की वो एक डेलिकेट टोन है, या वो थोड़ी सी अभी गुस्से में है। एंड आई थिंक क्योंकि मैं खुद भी अभी लर्न कर ही रही हूँ, लाइक मैंने चंद किताबें ही की हैं अभी, तो आप भी सीख ही रहे हो कि कैसे आपको ब्रेक करना है फ्रॉम दैट कमर्शियल जोन वर्सेस अ वेरी प्राइवेट जोन ऑफ रीडिंग टू।
It's very beautifully put. So correct, Jasleen, when you're saying, you have to kind of break from that commercial zone and just kind of get into your own private space. So, Nimisha, tell me one thing. Like, of course, in an ad, some day you could be in a very bad mood. You could be very upset, but you are doing a very chirpy ad, you know? So that's just a matter of half an hour. So you kind of deliver it. But what do you do when you are doing an extremely chirpy, bubbly, fun book and you are really upset about something? And obviously, audiobook है तो 3 से 4 घंटे तो वो session चलेगा ही चलेगा. So what is your thinking process and mindset that you tend to adopt when you're not in the right frame of mind?
Nobody in the audio industry has seen
So,
Nimisha in a bad mood. And in fact, when she enters, she can lift the mood of everyone around.
Absolutely,
Sorry to
I
interrupt.
agree. I agree.
no, so yes, I agree. Like, I'm rarely in a bad mood, but like, okay, if it does happen, you know, it's important, not just as voice artists, as any professional, to keep your moods and mindset a little separate from the work that you're doing. So when I am doing the book, any book, my first idea of beginning the reading and everything, or the narration, is to try and immerse myself into the story of that book. So the minute you immerse yourself wholeheartedly, then everything falls apart. It just falls away. So that, I think, for me, is the first step, to try and immerse myself into the story of the book. Then your personal moods and mindsets become secondary. And yes, working from home is challenging. I have a family and children, and a lot of time working from home, the environment tends to affect you. But it is important for us as voiceover artists, especially because we have to deliver a certain quality of work. There can't be too much ambient noise. There can't be a lot of. So, automatically, the quality of work which you need to deliver forces you to go into a quieter space, for me personally. So I'm able to mentally also go into a quieter space when I'm locked in my room and I'm beginning to start work. So it is about really thinking that we are going to be now doing this. Similar to what you would go into a studio. When you're going into the studio, engineer sitting outside, then everything has to be left behind. You have
Yes,
to leave it
yes.
behind. Otherwise, you won't be able to function as a professional. So I think it's not just applicable for a voice artist, it's applicable for each and every person working in any sphere of life. Yeah.
Very like this is like life hashtag life lessons. Thank you so much, Nimisha. So Siddhant, tell me one thing, which is that one book or that really kind of touched your heart, or that one compliment that made you feel that I'm doing something right in my life by narrating an audiobook.
For me, in the audiobook, part of my life, it would have to be this moment. So, I had this amazing opportunity to read Anand Neelkantan's books, the Rise of Kali, and the Roll of the Dice and the Rise of Kali. And then this book was launched during Audible's launch event, right? So what they had at the event was kiosks where you could put on headphones and press a particular book on the screen and listen to it. And at one particular kiosk, I saw Anand Neelkantan listening to my voice, and I just stood behind him. He put it off. He turned around and he met me and he said, "I'm so glad you did my book." Right. So that for me was a moment that stood out. I've had plenty of books that have touched me. Really, one of them is Arco's as well. Right. It's about Dara Shuko, and I had amazing. I mean, all these books are. It's like fate. These are all iconic books that many people will read and listen to. And why am I selected to be the voice of it? Right? It's a something I don't take lightly, and I'm very grateful for. And that was a book that really touched me. It's a story of Dara Shuko, who is Aurangzeb's brother, who, if had not been murdered and would have become the ruler, India would have been a different place. Right? He was much more open-minded. He loved the arts, etc., etc.
So I had this great opportunity of being taken for tour to Audible's studio, right? And I was like, it's Audible, let me see what their studios are. And I was expecting these big fancy studios. But in fact, they were little cubicles, which are not more than 3 or 4 feet wide. There was a computer and there was a mic and headphones. And they had several of these small things built, because that's the most efficient way to do an audiobook. And I was taken on tour. These are studios, and that's George Keogh. And he's the #1 narrator perhaps for Audible, and he was sitting on his own, no engineer, and reading the book and recording it and stopping it and recording it himself. And that opened my mind. I mean, why are we spending so many resources to make an audiobook when it's something that can be done by the narrator themselves? And that's when we change the way we work as well, right? Because for us, the audio industry was having this big fancy studio and having an engineer, and so it's such a personal thing, recording an audiobook as well, that's all you need. You need a little quiet space, just the narrator and the book. And so these were things that stood out for me in my audiobook experience.
How lovely, how lovely. Jasleen, aap bataiye, the one book or the one experience that really made you feel that I'm so glad I'm doing this.
I would say really for me, reading Farah Bashir's book, it was like while I was reading, I was also the listener. वो पूरी किताब पढ़ते वक्त मतलब वो आपको एक जोन में लेकर जाती है जहाँ पर आप खुद हैरान हो जाते हैं that the kind of experiences that people have in Kashmir and how life is so tough, whether it is आपके local Kashmiris की हो, चाहे वहाँ पर आर्मी की हो, बच्चों की, मतलब आपको हैरान, वो बुक आपको हिला देती है. And I also remember it's all in our stars. बहुत फनी इंसिडेंट था कि मैं इतनी इन्वॉल्व हो गई थी रीडिंग में क्योंकि आप वो कैरेक्टर भी हैं, आप उसका एक कथार्टिक मोमेंट है, आप उसको भी पढ़ रहे हैं. आखिरी चैप्टर जब उसमें आया तो वो इतना इमोशनल था कि I couldn't hold back my tears and I had to take a pause because I was bawling. मतलब वो पढ़ते पढ़ते मैं खुद ही इतना रो रही थी. मुझे आधा घंटा लगा अपनी आवाज़ वो जो नेज़ल हो रखी थी कि ये तो लिसनर्स को भी पता चलेगा कि ये नरेटर रो क्यों रहा है. So that's the power of good writing, and
Yes.
it moves you. You are involved in it, and you are in it with your heart and soul, and you feel the book.
Absolutely.
So somewhere during those hours, you enter that world yourself.
Absolutely. And you look forward to, "Arey, kal kya hoga ye kitab mein?" That's, I think, the power of good writing, as you said.
Yeah.
Arcopol, what about you sitting on the hot chair? Which book is it? Have you felt that, oh my God, thank God, ये audiobook version हुआ और सिर्फ print version में ही limited नहीं रहा?
I think Jasleen is very right. वो Rumors of Spring का जो experience है, और इसमें Jasleen ने को काफ़ी additional मेहनत करनी पड़ी क्योंकि इसमें काफ़ी कश्मीरी words थे पूरे book में.
Yes.
और और उसके लिए हमने ऑथर की हेल्प ली. द ऑथर इज अ कश्मीरी, सो वी थॉट लेट्स गेट द वर्ड्स राइट. तो हमने उनकी हेल्प ली. बट हेल्प लेने के बाद जसलीन ने जिस तरह से उन वर्ड्स को रेंडर किया, इट वाज स्पॉट ऑन. मतलब कोई पर्सन अगर वो बुक को सुन रहा है, उसको उसे लगेगा कि जसलीन इज द पर्सन हुज रिटन द स्टोरी, शी इज फ्रॉम कश्मीर. और वो गैप पता ही नहीं चलेगा उसको. तो आई थिंक दैट वाज वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट लिसन्स इन द लास्ट 1 year, जब से हम ऑडियो बुक्स बना रहे हैं. नॉट जस्ट फॉर द परफॉर्मेंस बट ऑल्सो बुक में जो डेप्थ है वो एक अलग किस्म का डेप्थ है. मतलब अबाउट कश्मीर हम लोग हमारी लाइफ को यहाँ पे काफ़ी फॉर टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड लेते हैं. बट व्हेन यू रीड कि किसी को अपने घर के सारे खिड़कियां बंद रखनी पड़ती हैं, क्योंकि शायद अगर थोड़ी सी खिड़की खुली हो तो उससे शायद एक ग्रेनेड आके घर में आके फट जाए. ये एक पॉसिबिलिटी है इन डेली लाइफ, इन द ऑथर्स ग्रोइंग अप ईयर्स. तो वो वैसे जब आप पढ़ते हो तो यू कांट हेल्प बट बी मूव्ड. आई थिंक इसके अलावा आई थिंक आई एम अ ह्यूज फैन ऑफ सिद्धांत's वर्क फॉर तारा शुको, as he mentioned, and Nimisha is one of our very regular narrators. Her performance in The Last Queen in particular is one of our very very key audiobooks जो हमने की है last 1 year में. And I think the threshold just keeps on sort of going up. We are constantly pushing the envelope. And जैसे जैसे ऑडियो बुक मार्केट बढ़ेगा, we'll do more experimental work. हम और ऊंधा काम करेंगे, क्योंकि अभी जो बेंचमार्क है ऑडियो बुक्स के लिए फॉर अ लिसनर, जो ऑडियो बुक्स सुन रहे हैं, समझो वो इंटरनेशनल ऑडियो बुक्स सुन रहे हैं, इंटरनेशनल परफॉर्मेंस के ऑडियो बुक्स सुन रहे हैं, वो उनको उनको लगेगा कि ये क्वालिटी जो है ऑलरेडी इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स को मीट कर रही है. अब हम उसको और पुश एनवेलप को पुश करना चाहते हैं, ताकि we want to send our books for awards not only in India but also to international audiobook awards where we'll be competing with the best. और एक और चीज़ मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, especially since we have the best voice artists जो इस प्लेटफॉर्म में हैं. एक टाइम हुआ करता था जब ऑथर्स बोलते थे कि यार फॉरेन एक्सेंट वाले नरेटर को ले लें, क्योंकि ऑडियो बुक को तो यार ग्लोबली बिकना है. बट आई थिंक लास्ट 1-2 साल में आई थिंक दैट होल मूड हैज शिफ्टेड कि वी आर नॉट अशेम्ड ऑफ आवर इंडियन एक्सेंट. आवर इंडियन एक्सेंट इज ग्रेट. एंड वो इंडियननेस को हमें वी डोंट हैव टू हाइड बिहाइंड इट कि हम एक इंडियन एक्सेंट में बात करते हैं. तो आई थिंक दैट acceptance has come in, and we are now, our books for example Harper UK भी यूज करती है for distribution in their territories. तो recently हमने एक बुक करी है, it's called Nehru. It's narrated by a very talented artist called Shubhankar Ganguly. His narration style is very reminiscent of Stephen Fry. He was, for example, one of my big finds in the last 1 year as a narrator who was not so established, but he's a big find. So his book, audiobook, is now being heard globally. It's being used by HarperCollins UK. So I think those are some of the big, perks of the fact that we can work with such voices, new voices, fresh voices, and I hope that continues.
I'm sure it will. And
Absolutely.
Nimisha, you tell us one of our favorite voices, a compliment that stayed with you.
A compliment that stayed me. I have actually, you do good books, you do great books. I wouldn't say any book is bad because I'm not an author. So to be able to write a book itself, I think is a big, big, big accomplishment. Personally, for me, I really enjoyed The Last Queen. It, कई किताबें आप ऐसी पढ़ते हो और वो आपके दिल को छू जाती हैं. एंड व्हेन यू रीडिंग इट, जैसे जसलीन ने बोला, इवन लास्ट क्वीन पढ़ते हुए बिल्कुल आखिर में इट्स रिटन इन सच अ हार्टफेल्ट मैनर दैट आप अपने आप को कंट्रोल नहीं कर पाते, बिकॉज इफ यू आर ट्रूली इन्वॉल्व्ड इन द नरेशन एंड रीडिंग ऑफ द बुक, देन ये इट्स एन ऑटोमेटिक इमोशनल कनेक्ट विद द वर्ड्स and the writing. तो वो हो ही जाता है. तो I think Last Queen का narration really, really touched my heart because it's a very beautifully written book. Then there was Girl in White Cotton, Avni Doshi की जो किताब थी. It's a difficult book. It makes you uncomfortable. because it's a dark book, which is why I think she got nominated for the Booker also. And उसको पढ़ते हुए मेरे को कई बारी पॉज लेना पड़ा, because it's about a very complex relationship एक माँ और बेटी के बीच में. So a lot of time you go back to your own connection with your parents and things like that. So जितना आप immerse हो जाते हो story, reading, the story of the book, the more exciting and fun it is. Like I love doing audiobooks. I think it's really fun. It's been so, yeah.
I can feel you.
And
Like I
Benaifer, if I
always.
can just button here, and I'm sure Jasleen and Nimisha will agree with me, if you're ever having a bad day, an audiobook narrator just needs to scroll through comments, and within minutes you feel like,
Yeah.
I've done something. I've affected
Yeah,
these two
not so
lives. For them
bad.
to listen to me for so many hours and actually write a comment, which is, they've taken the time to write that comment, sometimes a long comments.
Yeah.
This is something that is priceless.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. Like I always say that I think I want to be after I'm dead and gone, I want to be remembered as the best storyteller in the world, if not world, at least Bombay. Siddhant and Arcopol,
For everything else, there's ads, but audiobooks are priceless, whatever that Visa line is. I messed that up, didn't I?
By the way, if I may make another comment, Benaifer, your work on Don't Disturb Ghosts in Our Backyard, the Ramsey Brothers book, that was phenomenal. I think we got a lot of comments and feedback. If you go to Storytel and Audible, you'll notice that people have left comments. And I think
may I tell you a little secret? I was scared to
Yes.
do it.
Sure.
That means you were truly into the story.
I want to ask you, was that music playing in the background?
But thank you so much. So, Arcopol and Siddhant, I want to ask you all a question. You all even deal directly with authors. See, कभी भी ऐसे सिनेरियो आता है, एक्सपीरियंस आता है जहां ऑथर बोलेंगे कि ये बुक मुझे ही नरेट करनी है, and sadly, with due respect, the author may not be the right choice of voice for that particular project. He or she may be a great writer, but not a great voice artist. So, have you ever faced that kind of a situation?
Arco, you go.
Okay, I'll go first. ये काफ़ी कॉमन हो रहा है आजकल. Authors, and I completely respect where they're coming from. उनकी बुक है, उन्हीं के वॉइस में लिखी हुई है. स्पेशली अगर ये ऑटोबायोग्राफी है कि या मेमोर बायोग्राफी जिसको हम कहते हैं, तो इट्स रिटन इन फर्स्ट पर्सन, तो इट्स नेचुरल कि उन्हें लगता है कि वो नरेट करना चाहते हैं. हम हमेशा रेकमेंड करते हैं कि दिस शुड बी डन बाय अ प्रोफेशनल, क्योंकि हमें अभी पता है कि द इकोनॉमिक्स कैसे काम करते हैं. वो स्टूडियो का जो टाइम है, एडिटिंग का टाइम है, पोस्ट प्रोडक्शन का टाइम है, कॉस्ट को रैशनलाइज करना है, तो हम इसको बैलेंस करने के लिए हम हमेशा रेकमेंड करते हैं कि ये प्रोफेशनल नरेट करें. अगर फिर भी ऑथर इंसिस्टेंट है, हम लोग ऑडिशन करते हैं. ऑडिशन करने के बाद इफ़ वी हैव अ कंसेंसस कि ठीक है, हम लोग थोड़ी एफर्ट लगाएंगे, थोड़ी सुपरविजन की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी, बट एट द एंड ऑफ इट इफ़ वी फील द ऑडियो बुक विल बेनिफिट फ्रॉम इट, then we go with their voice. So for example, Sai Paranjpe, the very amazing Sai Paranjpe, उनकी memoir, it was I think total जो duration है वो book की, वो 18 घंटों की है. Now Sai ma'am is in her 70s, और ये pandemic का वक्त था, and we initially weren't keen to get her to a studio for various reasons. We thought, one, it will be exhausting to narrate for that long. Secondly, वो commute taxi में बैठना जाना आना, we just wanted to let someone who matches the age profile और वही narrate करे. हमने उनकी voice sample एक बार ली और उनकी enthusiasm देखी, and we were sure कि इनको ही narrate करना चाहिए. उन्होंने book में जो अंदाज से narrate किया है, if she's narrating an incident from her childhood, for example, she's narrating एक किस्सा है जहाँ पे she had, as a young girl, it was an intimate moment with a boy. वो जो she was blushing into the mic, you can hear it. आप mic में you can really sense it that this is how she's. So it feels like she's she's there with you. She's narrating the story to you in the same manner. But she's a professional. She's done radio. She's done voices for the longest time. Uh, Otherwise, kabhi kabhi we find a solution is that we have the author narrate a shorter section of the book, say the introduction or a preface, and then let the professional take over. I think that's sort of is a good common ground where the author is happy, the voice is part of the book, and the professional who can really take on from there and narrate the book in the best manner possible. So
Absolutely.
this is one way we approach it. There have been learnings along the way. We have gone ahead with an author uh, or two, and we've realized that maybe we could have done it another way. But it's fine. It's the author's work. It's the author's book. So we have to respect their decision completely.
Absolutely. I remember Arcopol, in fact, when Saiji was recording that book, it was at the same studio where I was recording another book, and the engineers were thrilled. They were like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
such an amazing, I mean, what energy. So I completely get
yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah, yeah.
Siddhant, your take on this?
So we are hearing more and more of this. Luckily, some authors, they try it and then themselves admit that it needs to be done by a professional. But some authors are fantastic, But I think the trend we're seeing is that the author is just getting more and more involved in the decision-making process, where they want to finalize the voice talent. So there's a lot of that going on, sharing voices, and they decide who the person should be. I don't think it's something that should threaten the voicing industry. There's just plenty of work for everyone. And some authors just want to do their own work. And as Arco said, they have every right to make that decision. But yes, post-production is a pain sometimes.
Absolutely. सिद्धांत, एक अब हमारे जरा ऑडियंस क्वेश्चंस, हम बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस आए हैं. राजा शाह जी ने पूछा है, how can someone approach a studio online, someone who wants to give his or her voice for an audiobook? Online कैसे स्टूडियो को अप्रोच कर सकते हैं?
info@offspin.com. Email us and we'll very gladly reach out to you and listen to your voice, send us some samples. And we'll help you through the process as well if you're interested in that.
Superb. वापस दोबारा please repeat कर दीजिए in case
info@offspin.com, OFSPIN.com. We're thrilled to hear your voice.
Thank you. Jasleen, Devyani Dagaonkar is asking us, as a voice artist, do you first read or go through the entire book to understand the feel of it before recording, or do you take it chapter by chapter?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't go through the whole book. Although I guess, yeah. I mean, I do sort of read a bit of the gist and all of that. There are times when you do have a conversation with the author before you record it. They do tell you the gist of it, and they also tell you the kind of narration that they're looking at. You keep all of that in mind, and I tend to go chapter by chapter. There are times where I don't want to, I mean, this is my personal take. I don't want to read the whole book in advance because I feel if I know every bit of it, then I will come with a colored opinion. Having said that, आप constantly pronunciations check करते हैं. आप जैसे आपने बताया कि बहुत सारी Chinese terminology आई थी, और जैसे मैंने Rumors of Spring पढ़ी तो मुझे पता था उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा कश्मीरी लाइंस हैं और it's a very difficult tongue. तो उसके बारे में आप थोड़ा सा अपना होमवर्क करते हैं. आपको थोड़ा वक्त बिताना पड़ता है, बट मैं उनमें से नहीं हूँ जो पूरी किताब पहले पढ़े और फिर उसको पढ़े. वो अब तक तो नहीं हो पाया मुझसे.
I can feel you, क्योंकि जसलीन मैं भी पूरी किताब तो नहीं पढ़ती हूँ, लेकिन what I do is I do a Google search of the synopsis of the book to know कि sometimes the title of the book may not give away the content or what is there. So it's always good to do a little bit of homework, and then I think the fun of spontaneity, like you mentioned, I completely agree with you on that. So that answers, I think, Girish P's question as well. How do you deal with a new audiobook project? Do you read the entire book once before starting the project, or do you start side by side? So Girish ji, आपका भी question answer हो गया. Nimisha, What should be the least minimum charge per hour a voice artist should get for an audio book recording? The golden question.
Oh my God, the answer could get me into real trouble.
All of us.
It would not be fair for me to give a figure because depending on the budget which is available to the producers, some books written by certain authors have a higher budget vis-a-vis others. So it wouldn't be fair for me to give a figure that this is the ideal rate. For aspiring artists, what is most important right now, I would say, is to just practice, practice, and practice. So when I started out in the industry, how much money I'm getting for the project was the last thing on my mind because I wanted to break into it. So that is the kind of mindset that a person needs to have when they're doing an audiobook also, because the kind of experience you're going to get reading for 4 or 5 hours, immersing yourself in a book, that's more valuable than that 1 hour's, per hour cost. And as both Siddhant and Arcopol have said, that as the industry expands and grows, money is only going to get better, and audio is growing. So we have to think of it from that perspective rather than putting a figure to it that this is what I should be getting and I'm not going to work below that. The idea is, what do you expect at the end of the day from that experience of reading that audiobook? Is it going to take you to a different level as an artist? That's what you need to think.
Lovely. Very well said, Nimisha. Siddhant, quick question. This could take hours, but in just 2 minutes, tell us, how does one make a foray in the field of audiobooks? That's your question.
Reach out to producers such as Offspin, reach out to Arco, reach out to other publishers, do your homework, and listen to a lot of audiobooks yourself to understand what is working and what isn't. And as Nimisha says, practice day and night, right? You need to get into that bracket of 1.5 times. If it's English, of course. Hindi is a slower language and that could take 2x the number of finished hours. But yeah, what does it take to work yourself into that bracket of, for an hour of finished content, how much time do you take, right? And that only comes with practice and fluency and hours of reading. This is where that 10,000 hours funda really works.
Absolutely. So, quick rapid fire questions for the gurus of the audiobook world. So, according to an article published by the Financial Times, Dash country has been the fastest growing market for audiobooks after the US and China.
India.
That's right. So basically, just a trivia, the global audiobook market, which was valued at $4 billion in 2020, is estimated to grow to $20 billion by 2030. As per industry experts, the Indian trade book market, excluding educational titles, is estimated to be anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion. Wow. Next question. Which country is Storytel, the popular audiobook streaming subscription service, originally from?
Sweden.
Right.
India?
Sweden.
Sweden
is the right answer. Okay. What is Audible's free app, which is made exclusively for Indian users and is a first of a kind from Amazon only for its Indian users, called? Clue, it offers more than... Yes, that's right. Wow, you're not letting me finish the question. Okay, now tell... Absolutely not. So, tell me the longest audiobooks that you have narrated. Nimisha, Jasleen, Siddhant.
Around 20 hours, and then they're part of series. So, I think 20 is, but we've had some we've produced which are 24, 27. Really depends.
Okay. What about you?
About 7 to 10 hours, if I'm not mistaken. 7 hours to karai hai. Yeah, 7 hours finished product.
Yeah, finished content.
Yeah, similar for me, about between 9 to 10 hours. Yeah.
I guess when you go into mythology and careers and finance, those are really voluminous books.
Yeah. The longest that I had done was 22 hours, J. Krishnamurthy's biography.
Wow.
22 hours.
Yeah. I was like a
I'm not
fixture
even
in the
going
studio.
on. how much recording time that took you. Let's not go down that road.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Hi,
Sorry,
Hi,
hi.
sorry.
Darpan.
I
Standing
thought this
ovation for
was
Darpan Mehta.
I thought this was an interesting question. So my longest audiobook narration was 37 hours,
Whoa.
or
Whoa.
37
Wow.
hours with the Discovery of India.
Discovery of India. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What an honor.
Amazing.
Anyways, guys, this has been such a spectacular beginning to day three. And pardon my voice, I have a little infection, so I've lost my voice. But the spirit is intact. And Siddhant, so happy to finally put a face to your voice and to our emails and
Not many
WhatsApp
people are
messages.
recognizing me, Darpan. I shaved for you today, so I'm glad the face is presentable. But
Absolutely,
yeah, amazing.
absolutely.
I cannot say enough about what you've done.
How
The
kind of you.
effort, the
Thank you.
entire team behind Sugar Medias. I mean, fantastic. We owe you a lot. Thank you.
It's very kind of you. Thank you. I think I mean, when we have conversations like this on this platform, it all seems worth all the effort that you put in. Benaifer, I must compliment you. You've been a fabulous moderator today, and
Thank you for the
आर्कोपोल
opportunity.
आर्कोपोल ने हिंदी को जिंदाबाद रखा है आज और और मैं बड़ी मस्ती कर रहा था आप लोगों के साथ चैट पर मैंने कहा आप लोग हिंदी कुछ लोग हिंदी में बात करिए अगली बुक का ऑडिशन हो जाएगा and Nimisha and Jasleen, I can't thank you guys enough. And it was such an insightful conversation. मुझे लगता है कि किसी भी प्लेटफॉर्म पर अभी आर्कोपोल तो खुद पब्लिशर हैं और बहुत सारे कॉन्फ्रेंसेस होते रहते हैं और थोड़ा बहुत मैं भी पढ़ता रहता हूँ बट मुझे नहीं लगता कहीं भी किसी भी कॉन्फ्रेंस में या किसी भी प्लेटफॉर्म पर वॉइस एक्टिंग और ऑडियो बुक का समन्वय एक तरीके से किसी एक कॉन्वर्सेशन में हुआ हो. So and it is an absolute delight to have such an amazing spectrum of people, production, publishing, voice artist. It covers the entire gamut of probably almost every. I think sound designer नहीं है यहाँ पर अभी, वरना पूरा it would have been a complete circle. Between all five of them, I think there's more than 100 years of experience, and all of them are very, very senior, accomplished people. People have been so, appreciative of this discussion and asked me, I'm not an outsider, मैं तो खुद एक veteran voice हूँ, ऑडियो बुक का प्रोड्यूसर हूँ और तो मेरे लिए it has been an absolutely riveting experience. मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है कि आप लोगों ने जो बातें की कितना कुछ सीखा मैंने. So I can't thank you guys enough. Arcopol, Siddhant, Benaifer, Nimisha and Jasleen, आप लोग मेरे कहने पर और आए हैं और आपने इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट को आज की गरिमा को इतना बढ़ाया है. You've added so much value, so much depth to this conversation, and I hope that at least some people will use these insights and really move ahead in the space of audiobooks. यार सिद्धांत ने तो अपना ईमेल आईडी भी दे दिया और बाकी लोगों से भी आप जुड़ सकते हैं इस माध्यम के जरिए. आपको इनके बारे में पता चला है, so please connect with them. मैंने कल भी कहा था, follow them on social media, and अगर आपके हुनर में होगा दम, तो जैसा मैंने कुछ दिन पहले कहा था कि अगर आपके हुनर में है दम तो इंतजार कर रहे हैं हम. तो अपने हुनर पर काम कीजिए, बाकी चीजों से दूर रहिए. Just work on your craft. And this has been such a beautiful opening of day
That's but
3.
just
I
one
can't
thing.
thank you
We are
guys
not
enough.
that
Yes.
old. We don't have 100 years of experience cumulatively. We're
नहीं
not that old.
मैंने खुद को भी गिन दिया ना. 50 साल तो मेरे एक्सपीरियंस के हो गए. मजाक कर रहा हूँ. I think I can take the liberty of
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 course.
this friendly banter with all of you क्योंकि हम सब इतने मजे से एक दूसरे को जानते हैं. और thank you so much everyone.
Thanks.
Lovely
Thank
lovely
you.
speaking
Thank
to you.
you
Lovely
so
Thank you
speaking
much.
for
with
bringing
all
us
of
Thank you.
together.
you.
Lovely.
Thank
Bye.